Beginning the countdown at number 10 is Howie Mandel. Although he's a very successful comedian and a lot of people would defend his humor, there will naturally be people out there who just don't find him funny. He's also known for his rowdy and loud personality, and one person who isn't a fan of it is Piers Morgan. Turns out he didn't care for Howie's cheerful attitude and silly jokes, so he banned him from returning to his talk show. The comedian never really did anything to personally upset him, and there isn't some big drama to the story. He simply just didn't like him on the show. Piers said that Howie was too irritating to have on his show, and even went as far as calling him the most annoying man in the history of planet Earth. That makes it crystal clear, Piers Morgan. Clear as glass. You do not like Howie Mandel. Coming up next, number 9 is Madonna. At first it might be shocking to think that someone would ban the Queen of Pop herself, but there is one talk show she is permanently banned from. She too got banned from Piers Morgan, and he made sure that everyone knew about it. Back in 2011, he made a public statement saying that he would never allow her to return to a guest on his CNN show at the time. He called Madonna, I quote, "an irritant in my life for 20 years. So it sounds like they've had some beef for a while then. He said that she would only be invited onto his show if she made an apology to him on live television. There's been different rumor mills on why he dislikes her so much, but his exact reasons are still kind of unclear. He just said that she is responsible for a series of crimes against him, whatever that means. Rolling into the number 8 spot is Gilbert Gottfried. He's a talented comedian but is known for having a dark sense of humor, mainly insult comedy. He's been titled crude, inappropriate, but also hilarious. I think people's personal opinions on him would just vary depending on their sense of humor, which is fair because we all have our own sense of humor. But radio and television personality Howard Stern wasn't a fan of his comedy when he appeared on his talk show. The two of them got pretty heated with one another, and Howard said that he was being talked down to by Gilbert. He also took a joke too far and spit up cupcakes behind the scenes while the cameras were still rolling, and Howard just was kind of frustrated by it. He didn't really get it and he didn't find it funny. He was actually once a regular on his show, but he has never appeared on it since, and Howard does not have plans to bring him back. Moving on to number 7, we have Howard Stern. Well, isn't that just a funny little coincidence? What comes around goes around, I guess. He issued a few different bans on other celebrities, but was on the receiving end for one of them. It all came from his longtime feud with Jay Leno, which all started after Howard accused him of stealing bits from his own show. Not to mention the chaos in 1995 when Howard appeared on his show and brought 2 nearly naked women on stage and started sucking on their toes when Leno interviewed the next guests. He was so mad with this weird and erratic behavior that he actually ended the show early by walking off the stage. In at number 6 is the Kardashians. I am not going to name the girls off one by one because they all got banned from a show as a family, like a group coupon kind of deal. Like a Groupon. Back in 2012, during an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, the CNN news anchor Anderson Cooper was asked if there was anyone he would refuse to have on his show at the time. He responded with, "I'd say generally any member of the Kardashian family." There wasn't much of an explanation why, and people were actually confused because just a few hours before that interview, Khloe tweeted about how much she loves the newsman and even referred to him as a silver fox. Which is just awkward, because clearly y'all are not on the same page with one another. Halfway through at number 5 is Kathy Griffin, another comedian whose content focuses a lot on dark comedy and controversial subjects like religion, politics, and LGBTQ rights. So there is bound to be a few people that she offends or frustrates. Throughout her career, she's been banned from more talk shows than anyone else on this list, and they include The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, The View, Ellen, and The Late Show with David Letterman. The reasons vary from making derogatory comments all the way to taking her clothes off. True story, video proof is still on YouTube. While she was on the David Letterman's talk show, she decided to take off her clothes on live television during their interview. She literally undid her dress, pulled it down, exposed her entire bra and her stomach, and the fact that she was not wearing underwear. True story, and then she had him zip it back up, and it's very uncomfortable to watch, but I think you should. Sliding into number 4 is Hugh Grant. How could anyone possibly ban the charming actor? I mean, am I right? Well, it is possible, and Jon Stewart banned him from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart back in 2009. He said his decision is justified though, and claimed that Hugh was extremely rude when he appeared on the show. He said he was cursing, complaining about everything, and people around him complained that he was annoying pretty much everyone on set. But down the road, the actor admitted that he was in a bad mood that day, and he tweeted out, "Turns out my inner crab got the better of me with TV producer in 09. Unforgivable. Jay Stewart, correct, give me kicking." At least he admits it, right? I mean, we have all had bad days. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was cranky sometimes. Alright guys, we've made it to number 3 and we have Joan Rivers. The comedian legend was once a permanent guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, but she ended up landing a gig to have her very own late night show on Fox, and their friendship soon came to an end because of it. She made history for being the first woman to ever host a late night broadcast talk show, but it turned out to be a flop, and Carson felt betrayed by her because she left, so he banned her from returning to his, which I get. The ban even continued when Jay Leno took over in 1992 because Jay Leno was just trying to respect Carson's wishes. But in 2014, the ban was finally lifted by Jimmy Fallon when he did his premiere episode as the host of The Tonight Show. Taking over the number 2 spot is Adrian Brody. The actor completely shocked the audience with a joke that has gone down in history for being so inappropriate and offensive. Back in 2012, he was hosting SNL and he went onto the stage to introduce the rapper Sean Paul, but he wore a wig of fake dreadlocks and attempted this horrible Jamaican accent. The joke gone wrong was enough for him to get banned from ever returning to the show. Not to mention, the producer Lorne Michaels is said to hate when celebrities go unscripted on his show and do things that haven't first been approved or at least discussed, because I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have approved that joke. Winning the number 1 spot is Sinead O'Connor. The singer-songwriter first rose to fame in the 80s and has always been controversial and open about her political views and beliefs. But she's another person who got banned from SNL for pulling a stunt that went too far and did not have people laughing like the show's intentions are. While she was singing a cover of Bob Marley's War, she took out a picture of Pope John Paul II and started reciting the word evil. And then she went on to rip it in half and say, "Fight the real enemy." The entire studio was shocked and left in complete silence, probably feeling super uncomfortable, not really knowing how to react to something like that. I'm confused. I don't understand. Starting us off at number 10 is Steven Segal. If you thought he was the type of guy who wouldn't share his negative opinions about a topic, then you thought wrong. He likes to express these emotions through humor, but one time his jokes did not win him laughs. They actually got him banned from Saturday Night Live. Back in 1991, he hosted the show and received some pretty harsh ratings for his appearance. His jokes rubbed people the wrong way, but apparently there was also reports that he was just difficult to work with. Some crew members said they disliked working with him and that he was the worst host to ever appear on the show. So the actor and martial arts guru got banned from the show altogether. Moving on to number 9, we got Vince Vaughn. Many people would say that he's a great actor, but rumor has it there are less charming things about him when he is not on our screens. Everyone is allowed their own opinion, and apparently the actor made it clear that he doesn't really approve of gay marriage and same-gender relationships in general. And he revealed some of these comments while doing an interview on the Ellen DeGeneres show. As you know, Ellen is happily married to another woman and is a huge influence in the LGBTQ community. Now, there's been no confirmation from the source herself, but reports were made saying that after the interview, he was banned from returning to her show for a few years. Climbing into our number 8 spot is Gary Busey. He's a man full of talent, but his erratic behavior does not always sit well with others ever since his tragic motorcycle accident that ended with severe brain damage back in 1988. Throughout different interviews, he's shown fans that he has multiple personalities, which some people might get a kick out of, but Howard Stern is not one of those people. Gary got banned from the Howard Stern show after one of his interviews where he displayed this wild and bizarre behavior. He picked up Howard's co-host in this weird bear hug stunt, and he also wrestled Howard himself to the floor. In the middle of the interview. Just put him on the floor. Howard has said he felt some guilt banning him from returning to his show, but admits that he just simply cannot handle it. In at number 7 is Chris Brown. The singer flew into a rage on the set of Good Morning America, so it's not all that surprising that they wouldn't want him back on their show. It was back in 2011 when the singer didn't like the question they asked him, so he decided to walk out during the middle of the on-air interview. But he didn't just walk out gracefully, he left the interview, went backstage, ripped off his shirt like the Hulk, and smashed a studio window. Tell me it's not a coincidence that all of this anger came from a question about his felony assault case against his ex-girlfriend Rihanna. I mean, dude, you're really not helping your case here by trying to show the world that you can control your anger. No offense. Cruising into number 6 is Heather Mills. This one runs a lot deeper than just having bad behavior or a bad first impression. She was banned from the Piers Morgan show because she cheated on her husband. You're probably wondering why he would care about her love life so much. Well, her husband is actually his best friend. So you can imagine that would put him in an uncomfortable situation with having her on the show for interviews. So reports say after she cheated on his best friend, he banned her from being a guest on his show. Apparently, he's made some comments about the situation and said that she's just another, I quote, gold digger chasing wealthy gentlemen. Halfway through at number 5 is Kelsey Grammer. It appears as though Piers Morgan might throw bans around like it's no big deal, or maybe he's just a really hard guy to please. He slapped a lifetime ban on the Frasier actor after he appeared on Piers Morgan Live. What happened was, during his appearance, the network showed a photograph of his ex-wife, Camille Grammer, after they promised that the subject of his relationship would not be discussed on air. He responded to the photos by walking off set before he even made his full appearance. So they gave him a lifetime ban. Some people said it was a dramatic reaction, while others say the ban was a little over dramatic. So, what do you guys think? Which was the dramatic part? The reaction to the photos or the lifetime ban? Moving along to number 4, we have Piers Morgan. Yes, the roles have reversed. He throws around these bans on other celebrities, but he himself got one from Rosie O'Donnell. Now, the two of them don't actually have any beef with each other. Rosie banned him from the talk show, The Rosie Show, out of loyalty to one of her friendships. Turns out she's a good friend to Madonna, who got banned from Piers Morgan Live. I shared that story in our part 1 video. And since they are good friends, Rosie lashed back at Piers after finding out that Madonna got banned from his show and said that she was gonna ban him from hers. Rolling into our 3rd spot is Chevy Chase. He was once a big star from the original Saturday Night Live cast back in 1975. Actually, he was one of the first. But he is also the first cast member to ever get banned from the show. The good news is, his ban came long after he had left the show on his own terms. He left the show after 2 successful years and then returned 8 different times to host Saturday Night Live. During his 8th time hosting though, he got officially banned from ever returning after he hit another cast member in the back of the head. I'm not laughing that he punched someone. I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. Will Ferrell reported him after he apparently witnessed the physical assault. But over the years, he has gone on better terms with the creator Lorne Michaels, and although he was banned from hosting, they did allow him back on the show for smaller appearances. Taking over our number 2 spot is Martin Lawrence. It seems like NBC has no problem banning celebrity talent from Saturday Night Live if they are not pleased with their experience. Even the hilarious actor-comedian was banned from the network after he used inappropriate language that they said could risk the show's ratings. In his open monologue back in 1994, he made a reference to the female genitalia and also said some curse words, both things that were obviously not in the original script. He was banned from the show, and fortunately for the network, the inappropriate monologue was edited in a way so that they could take some of that out, so it didn't damage the ratings all that much, but some of it was still left in. Earning the number 1 spot on our list is Bobcat Goldthwait. This one takes the cake. It's honestly pretty crazy, and I'm surprised I didn't know about it before researching for my list. Back in 1994, the comedian went on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during the interview, he got infuriated when he heard that the Arsenio Hall show was being canceled. But he took his anger to a whole different level, and during the middle of the interview, he stood up, took out some lighter fluid, soaked his interview chair, and set the chair on fire. Maybe just the slightest bit dramatic, but to no surprise, he was banned appearing on the show ever again. He actually got fined, and he was forced to make a public service announcement in regards to fire safety.
At number 10, Piers Morgan. It is crazy to think that this person ruined their career because they didn't want to take someone's mental health seriously. TV presenter Piers Morgan had a lot to say after Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's bombshell interview. The insight that this royal couple shared in the interview were full of bombshell secrets and testimonies, and also included some serious allegations as they showed the public a new part of themselves, looking deeper into the lives of Meghan and Harry. One person who relentlessly picked the couple's interview apart was Piers Morgan, and his actions on his TV program ended his career in seconds and also led to him getting cancelled online. During the interview, Meghan Markle opened up about her mental health and how it was affected being part of the royal family, saying that there was once a point after she married into the family that she wanted to take her own life. Piers spoke spoke about this on air of Good Morning Britain and said that he, quote, didn't believe a word she said. After Piers made those harsh comments, he started to face massive backlash from all sides as people said that his comments on Meghan's mental health were diminishing and disrespectful. The studio he worked for, as well as Piers himself, started receiving harsh comments, and so Piers actually decided to leave his position at Good Morning Britain. He has since refused to apologize, and no one really wants to work with him after all of this drama, so it could be that his career is finished. At number 9, Chris Harrison. Bachelor Nation was in fury when a scandal took over the recent Bachelor season. It all started when a contestant's questionable past came to light and fans of the show started grabbing their pitchforks on Twitter demanding accountability. Now when Chris Harrison, the show's longtime host, tried to do some damage control, that's where things really got heated and it did not end well for him. When asked about the scandal involving a Bachelor contestant in an interview, Chris went on to seemingly defend this contestant where he said, quote, "We all need to have a little grace, a little understanding, a little compassion. Because I've seen some stuff online. This judge, jury, executioner thing. I haven't heard Rachel speak on this yet. Until I actually hear this woman have a chance to speak, who am I to say any of this?" End quote. People found his comments to be offensive and insensitive, saying that he was too quick to defend this contestant's actions. Even though he sort of tried to justify his comments, making it so that he wasn't necessarily defending this contestant, the fans still came for blood and they got it. After everything was said and done, Chris ended up leaving the show, effectively ending his career after this one talk show interview. Now before I carry on with the list, I would like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also maybe consider checking out my gaming channel, Viper Girl. I've got lots of fun stuff going on over there and I upload daily, so come check it out and subscribe while you're there. At number 8, Sinead O'Connor. SNL is one of the most popular and successful variety/talk shows out there, and because it's so popular, things can often go wrong with so many people watching and so much on the line for people's careers. One of the biggest scandals to come from SNL is probably the one involving Sinead O'Connor and how she called out the Catholic Church during a performance in 1992 that effectively destroyed her career. On this episode, Sinead was asked to perform a few songs for her newest album at the time, and though she agreed, there was a little fine print to accompany her appearance. Sinead asked to perform a rendition of Bob Marley's song War instead of a piece from her own album. That night, she got up on stage, sang the song, changed up the context of some of the lines, and made a bold statement at the end, after she held up a photo of Pope John Paul II and tore it up in a show of defiance against the Catholic Church. She did all this as a means to raise awareness about some of the allegations that were against the Catholic Church because she had personal experience with those who were allegedly hurt by members of said church, and she wanted to fight against it. This stunt angered a lot of people because for days following the performance, NBC received thousands of angry calls condemning them for allowing something like this to happen. Other celebrities like Madonna and Joe Pesci also had some harsh words for Sinead. After that event, no one wanted to work with her ever again, and her career pretty much went down the tubes soon after. At number 7, Carmen. For people trying to make it big in Hollywood and in the music industry, the idea is to get yourself in front of as many people as possible to build up your reputation. So when you're asked to be a judge on a talk show, that is a huge deal, but only if it goes smoothly, and for the music duo Carmen, that is certainly not what happened, because after a botched SNL performance, their career was over. Carmen, though now disbanded and rebranded, was a music duo who got their start on YouTube by posting covers of a lot of popular songs like Party Rock Anthem and Super Bass. Eventually, they got a large following, leading them to getting noticed by a casting director over at SNL. They invited the duo to perform on the show, and they sang a couple songs, but after the show, when the ratings came in, it wasn't looking good for Carmen. They got some pretty harsh reviews, and this completely tanked their career. One critic even said that their performance caused, quote, mild auditory distress. They were never really able to bounce back from this catastrophe of a performance, and so they eventually faded away, ending their careers. At number 6, Bill Maher. We should all know by now that language has the ability to do a lot. It can be good for when you're making positive changes, but it can also come back to bite you if you say something that isn't so nice. Some people, however, aren't very conscious of this, and their harsh and sometimes offensive language can cause them to face massive backlash and can even end their career. Take talk show host Bill Maher, for example. On his HBO show Real Time with Bill Maher, he dropped the N-word while talking to Senator Bill Sass, and as you could imagine, it did not end well for him. During his interview, the senator told Bill that he would like to invite him to Nebraska and, quote, have you work in the fields with us. To that, Bill replied, scoffing at the idea, saying, quote, I'm not a house N-word. After those words were uttered, the fury came from the public in condemning his use of that word. Bill claimed to have been using the word in a joking manner, but that still doesn't take away from the gravity of uttering that word in the first place. Bill was subsequently ripped apart by his audience and even other late-night personalities like Stephen Colbert. After this scandal, his career was never really the same because many people aren't quick to forget these things. At number 5, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne found herself in some hot water earlier this year after she made some comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry that not only caused her to get backlash but also lose a friend. Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood got into a heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's remarks about Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Pierce's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this frustrated Cheryl because she didn't like the comments that were being made about those involved. The two got into a very heated debate and ended with a lot of drama and sparking a conversation about Sharon's ideals. She was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about her and how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts. As a result of this, the network for their show launched an internal investigation that ended with Sharon being let go from the show. Sharon had been part of the show for so long that her firing certainly altered her career quite a lot. At number 4, Kelly Osbourne. Now, we just talked about Sharon Osbourne and her recent talk show scandal, but her daughter Kelly has also been in her fair share of controversies, including one that also happened while on a talk show that kind of ruined her career. During an episode of The View, Kelly Osbourne really missed the mark while trying to clap back at Donald Trump, and even though she was trying to diss Trump, she ended up getting in enough trouble for herself. Just shortly before this episode aired, Donald Trump, who was at the time only a presidential nominee, was saying offensive things about the Latinx community and how he wanted to deport them. I am sure we are all too familiar with this whole concept. Well, in a very poor attempt at clapping back at Trump's racist comments, Kelly said, quote, if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who's going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump? What Kelly was trying to do was defend the Latinx community, but rather than stand up for them, she ended up offending them even more, as her remarks were interpreted as saying that the Latinx community is only good for being housekeepers, as depicted in many racial stereotypes. After facing so much backlash and realizing the gravity of her words, Kelly issued an apology saying, quote, I want to start by saying I always take responsibilities for my actions. In this particular case, I will take responsibility for my poor choice of words, but I will not apologize for being a racist, as I am not. End quote. Kelly completely missed the mark on that one, and it certainly hurt her career. At number 3, Paula Deen. At one point, we all thought that Paula Deen was just a sweet southern mom who liked butter a little too much, but after 2013, she took on a very different label as she was exposed for being pretty racist following a lawsuit that showed the world what she was like behind the scenes. After being deposed, the truth came out after Paula was asked if she had ever used the N-word, and she said yes. This certainly was not good for her image, so she went on damage control to really take the heat off her, but instead of getting things to die down faster, her appearance on the Today Show caused things to get so much worse. Instead of owning up to her actions and trying to clear her name, as most people would try to do in that kind of situation, Paula instead deflected the criticism she was facing and even voiced how shocked she was that so many people were taking offense to her actions. The fact that she didn't even take accountability for her actions rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and just ended up making the situation so much worse for her and pretty much ended her career after that. At number 2, James Corden. Recently, TV host James Corden has found himself in trouble with fans after his Spill Your Guts segment from the show started facing backlash with fans. Fans are calling for James to take accountability after he made some comments about some Asian foods that he had on the show because some fans thought this was really offensive. Because the foods that they use in the Spill Your Guts segment are supposed to be ones that you wouldn't want to eat, the fact that some Asian foods like balut were used and called, quote, disgusting, made a lot of people take to the internet to call for accountability and an apology from James Corden. Apparently, James has been making these types of comments about a lot of different Asian dishes on a few occasions, so some people have said enough is enough, and some have even created a petition calling for the removal of the Spill Your Guts segment. Since James has been facing cancellation for this lately, do you think his career is in serious jeopardy, or do you think this will all blow over without any repercussions? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And finally, at number 1, Ellen DeGeneres. The number 1 person on this list who ruined their career on a talk show is no doubt Ellen DeGeneres. In 2020, we watched the comedian and talk show host fall rapidly from grace as allegation after allegation came out, painting Ellen as a nightmare to work with, among other things. She faced so much backlash from things like the treatment of her staff to comments about lockdown and the Black Lives Matter movement. Because of the events of last year, she lost a lot of credibility and respect in the industry, and her show lost a lot of ratings and advertisers as well. She really lost everything and has recently announced that her show will be ending after this last season, making it seem like her career is well and truly over. Now I want you guys to tell me about an embarrassing moment that happened recently to you or someone you know. Don't spare any of those juicy details. I promise we won't cringe too hard. We're all in this together. At number 10, Charles Rocket. Between 1980 and 1981, SNL seemed to be on its last legs. This all came about after there were some changes in staff, and Jean Dumanian was promoted to executive producer of SNL after Lorne Michaels decided to take a break from the show. Because of this seemingly controversial change, much of the original cast of the show left, leaving Jean to rehire a brand new cast. This gave people new opportunities, but also made others lose everything that they worked for. Comedian Charles Rocket was one cast member who had their career destroyed on the show after he dropped an F-bomb during a skit. The comedian was closing out the show when he spoke some adult language, and since that is a huge no-no, it got him reprimanded and caused him as well as a handful of others to get fired. So not only did he destroy his career, but other members of the cast seemingly met that same fate. At number 9, Jimmy Fallon. Last year, people were canceling celebrities left, right, and center for a bunch of different things. We had Ellen and her backstage drama, we had Lea Michele and her Hollywood mean streak, and we also had Jimmy Fallon because after a clip of the late night host in blackface resurfaced on the internet, the fiery hordes of Twitter came looking for vengeance. The clip in question came from a bit that Jimmy was doing as an impersonation of Chris Rock back in 2000. Because this all came about during the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement last summer, people were extra mad at Jimmy, and some thought that his career was over after this. But much like many other scandals online, this all blew over after Jimmy issued an apology and took accountability for his actions. Do you guys remember this scandal, and do you think that his career should have been over after this? Let me know your thoughts down below. Now before I carry on the list, I would like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and if you're interested in gaming content, consider checking out my gaming channel Viper Girl. There's lots of fun content for you guys to enjoy over there, so check it out and subscribe while you're there. At number 8, Jenny Slate. Imagine the worst first day you've ever had. Now after I tell you about Jenny Slate's first day on SNL, I want you to see if your first day is as bad as hers, because Jenny's first day ended her career before it really got a chance to start. Though she's successful now, her career had been delayed for a bit after she goofed up on SNL on her first night as a cast member. Back in 2009, Jenny got the chance to perform one of the sketches that she wrote called Biker Chit Chat. She knew the bit like the back of her hand, or at least she thought she did, because when she went to say one of her lines, she made it a little more adult by accidentally switching up one of the words and dropping an F-bomb in its place. We all know that on network television, and especially on shows like this, having adult dialogue is a serious no-no, and so when Jenny dropped that big ol' F, it was not good for her at all. After that night, Jenny struggled to fit the show's vibe, at least that's what she claimed to say. The F-bomb combined with some other behind-the-scenes stuff caused her to get fired from one of the most famous shows on TV, and that definitely held her back in comedy for a little bit, but clearly not forever. At number 7, David Letterman. When celebrities get exposed for some type of scandal, it's a big deal, and it can be career-altering, so when David Letterman exposed his own cheating scandal on his late-night talk show, things were serious, and some didn't know if he would ever bounce back from this bombshell. In October 2009, on his late-night talk show, David Letterman exposed his affair and revealed to the public that he had been intimately involved with someone from the studio. He also revealed that the reason why he was publicly addressing his affair was because someone was threatening to blackmail him for $2 million. He then told his audience about the mysterious package he found in his car one day and how his blackmailer had demanded to be paid off in order to keep this information from the public and from his wife. Rather than pay up, he owned up to his actions, but this was still a big deal because it was revealed that his mistress actually worked for him. Because this was a huge story, some wondered what it meant for the future of Letterman's show and career, but after some scrutiny, he was able to stay afloat for a little longer. It didn't destroy him, but it almost did. At number 6, Gene Simmons. I think we can all agree that Gene Simmons is somewhat of an outlandish guy. He's a guy with a lot of energy and no filter, so when it comes to sitting down with him live, you never know what he might say, but you can only hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and liked having him on their talk show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making crude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not nice at all. In this day and age, making comments like that is sure to get you in some serious trouble, and for a celebrity that is never good because that can cost you your entire career. At number 5, Adrien Brody. Adrien Brody is a super successful actor, but after a scandal while hosting Saturday Night Live in 2003, there could have been a chance that his career would have been well and truly over. Back then, cancel culture wasn't yet a thing, but if it was, Adrien would have had his own over party trending on Twitter. When hosting SNL, the person tasked with being the host that evening is responsible for introducing the musical guest for that evening. On the night that Adrien was hosting, the musical guest happened to be Sean Paul, and Adrien saw this as a perfect opportunity to introduce Sean in an interesting way, to say the least. When it came down to introducing Sean's performance, Adrien came out dressed in fake dreadlocks and sporting a Jamaican accent. His bit was called out and was seen as very offensive and uncalled for, as he went off script to do this bit, which no one found funny in the slightest. Because this was such an epic and controversial fail, the actor was subsequently banned from coming back on the show. He faced a lot of backlash that for his image for a while, but clearly he's bounced back since then. At number 4, Ashlee Simpson. This was the moment that caused Ashlee Simpson's career to crumble, and things haven't been the same since. I'm sure you all know the story about how Ashlee was caught lip-syncing during her SNL performance and how embarrassing it was. This was a defining moment for Ashlee because she was supposed to be getting her name out there to gain more notoriety and to grow her music career, but after this slip up on the show, Ashlee's name has been associated more with SNL fails than with the music industry, which is pretty unfair since she still brushed herself off after that incident and continued forward. Yes, this appearance pretty much destroyed her career, but she didn't let that stop her, which is good. At number 3, Chris Brown. Chris Brown seems to have gone on a journey to turn his life around after the incident that happened between him and Rihanna in 2009. After that moment, the public saw him very differently, and the singer was left picking up the pieces of his broken career. Things were rough for him in the years following the incident because the media labeled him as hot-headed, and this wasn't a good look for him, especially when he acted on said hot-headedness. In 2011, 2 years after the Rihanna incident, Chris Brown was a guest on Good Morning America and sat down with Robin Roberts for an interview to discuss his new album and to perform a song from said album. The interview and performance went sort of according to plan, but during his time on camera you could see Chris getting angry after Robin kept asking about his altercation with Rihanna. Chris kept trying to get her back on the topic of the album, but it didn't really work and he got really upset. As soon as the interview and performance were over, Chris stormed off the stage, took his shirt off, and threw a chair at a window, causing it to shatter and rain glass onto the street below. This interview made Chris look even worse in the eyes of the public, and it continued to affect his career negatively. At number 2, T.I. Back in November of 2019, rapper T.I. was a guest on a talk show podcast called Ladies Like Us podcast. Here the rapper opened up about his daughter, his relationship to her, and how he monitors his daughter's virginity. Yes, you heard that right. The rapper opened up about how he takes his daughter to a yearly gyno appointment to, quote, make sure her hymen is still intact, end quote. A woman's hymen is commonly associated with her virginity, even though there are many other ways it can be broken other than sex, but clearly T.I. didn't know that, and after telling a large audience about how he's so concerned about his daughter's purity, he faced a lot of backlash and was canceled for a bit. Going more in depth into how these appointments go down, the rapper told the podcast audience that he had to fight the doctor to get his daughter's results because it was private information, but even after all of that drama wanting to make sure that things were to his standard, T.I. later went on to comment on people who haven't been intimate, saying, quote, who wants a virgin? Like really, all that work. And finally at number 1, Kathie Lee Gifford. Sometimes when celebrities are being interviewed, their words can become a topic of debate and they can even get canceled for it. But here's a case where the person interviewing came under fire and it seriously affected their career and how people viewed them. Kathie Lee Gifford, best known for her time on Live with Regis and Kathie Lee, faced a lot of backlash after her Today Show interview with Martin Short caused quite a stir. Back in 2012, Martin sat down for an interview with Kathie to discuss his role in the film Madagascar 3, and during the interview, Kathie kept asking Martin about his wife. What she didn't realize at the time was the fact that his wife Nancy had actually passed away 2 years earlier after a battle with ovarian cancer. The interview was super cringe because you could tell that with every question about his wife, Kathie struck a nerve, but she did learn about her mistakes afterwards as Martin informed her of his his wife's passing backstage. Kathy's comments were seen as insensitive by a lot of people, and even though she says it was an honest mistake, we already know that the public and cancel culture don't really care about that. Now I want you guys to tell me if you've ever seen a celebrity in person and how that experience went. From seeing a celebrity on set in your city to meeting them in person, having a cool encounter with a celebrity seems like a pretty cool thing, so tell me if you've experienced something like this down in the comments. At number 10, Marc Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's going to happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Marc Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a pretty heated brawl after some jokes were made that rubbed them the wrong way. Essentially, Marc Summers made a comment about how he was still married while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made him pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Marc, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers went so far as to bring out pies for Marc and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Marc technically started it, he felt the most backlash. Soon fans started to notice that Marc just wasn't making it big in Hollywood anymore, and some believe that this bad press that came from this fight is what caused Marc's career to suffer. At number 9, Tom Cruise. Now I know you guys are going to come for me in the comments saying, Brie, Tom Cruise's career isn't destroyed, he's doing just fine. Yes, I know that. However, his career and public image did take a beating after his interview with Matt Lauer in 2005, where he made comments about mental health, psychiatry, and for his criticisms of actress Brooke Shields. All of this was caused by Tom's belief in Scientology and the fact that he doesn't believe in medication or therapy. While on the Today Show, Tom and Matt had the discussion about how the actor criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants for her postpartum depression, and he tried to shut down anything that Matt would say to defend psychiatry, also going on to say, quote, "You don't know the history of psychiatry, I do," end quote. Between that and his stance on Scientology, he lost a lot of popularity, leading to some box office bombs that affected his career. Now before I carry on with the video, I would like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also check out my gaming channel Viper Girl if Minecraft content piques your interest. I've got lots of fun stuff going on over there and I upload every single day, so come check it out and subscribe while you're there. At number 8, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was riding a pretty good wave back when he was the star of 2.5 Men, but after doing an interview on 2020, things took a turn and his career pretty much got destroyed. Everything sort of came crashing down for him after that interview, where he ranted about the 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre. This interview was pretty chaotic and all over the place, with Charlie waving his hands about frantically and even going so far as to call Chuck a turd and a clown. This became a media feeding frenzy as they labeled him as crazy, and they just pushed him to his breaking point. As a result of some of the comments Charlie made during the interview, he was fired from 2.5 Men, and that was a pretty big deal since he had been pulling in about $1 million per episode. The actor pretty much hit rock bottom after that, making this a lesson to remind you to watch what you say. At number 7, Wilmer Valderrama. When That 70s Show actor Wilmer Valderrama was a guest on Howard Stern's show back in 2006, he had the potential to use the experience to his advantage and help his career, but instead he did the opposite and caused some damage instead. While on the show, the actor shared a little too much information with Stern and exposed a lot of the details about people he had slept with. Wilmer revealed that he had slept with Mandy Moore and even described the experience even though no one asked for that. He also rated his relationship with actress Jennifer Love Hewitt even though, once again, nobody asked. Wilmer really just exposed a lot of personal information about himself, but faced scrutiny because of how the people he talked about were impacted. A lot of people said that the comments he made were uncalled for, uncomfortable, and inappropriate. Years later, in 2010, the actor apologized for what he said during the interview, but the damage was already done. His career wasn't the same, and the people he slept with were pretty mad about having their business exposed like that too. At number 6, Addison Rae. Back in April of this year, TikTok star Addison Rae faced backlash after her appearance on The Tonight Show. The influencer was invited on the show to perform a handful of viral TikTok dances, and though it seemed innocent and unproblematic, this is the internet and there is always a problem. Addison, as well as Jimmy Fallon, started facing backlash because no credit was given to the people who created the dances that Addison performed. A lot of people watched this bit on the show and thought that it wasn't fair that Addison got to come on to the show and essentially take credit for the work of other TikTok creators, and so fans took to the internet to advocate for those who lost out on the notoriety of their dances. The Tonight Show producers, as well as Fallon himself, recognized that they deserved to have their voices heard, and so they got their opportunity, but for Addison Rae, this bad publicity just hurt her public image for a while. But honestly, this isn't anything new because these TikTokers are always getting into some kind of mess anyway. At number 5, Trisha Paytas. Trisha Paytas seems to be in some kind of drama or controversy every couple of months. Most recently, the YouTuber was caught in some drama with their former podcast co-host, Ethan Klein. The pair had a podcast called Frenemies, and honestly, the title said it all. They had beef in the past and decided to make a podcast out of it, so really the whole thing was doomed from the start. But I digress. Basically, they got into yet another fight, and Trisha decided that they needed to quit the podcast. After leaving, the quote-unquote truth started to come out about the behind-the-scenes drama regarding the podcast. Most of the conflict had to do with money and how much each person contributed to the show and whatnot. But this debate got heated, exposed videos were made, and talk show careers came to an end. Even though their career isn't completely destroyed simply because Trisha won't let it die, it wasn't good for their image or credibility, but honestly, things are always rocky with Trisha, so even if we think that their career is over, they won't think so. At number 4, Wendy Williams. With the drama surrounding Britney Spears and her conservatorship, everyone seems to want to put their 2 cents in and contribute to the conversation, and the criticisms being thrown towards Britney's family, especially her father. Most of this criticism happens on the internet from Britney's fans, but talk show host Wendy Williams took things one step further and made her comments about the situation on air of her show. She was discussing Britney's ongoing court battle with the audience, and she made comments about how Britney's parents had the public fooled into thinking that they were doing what was best for the pop star. After learning more information as to what's really been going on in that situation, we know that things are much more rocky than we once thought, and because this is so unfair for Britney, this got Wendy pretty heated because she followed up her criticisms of the Spears family by saying, quote, "Death to all of them," end quote. This comment went a little too far for people's likings, and Wendy faced backlash for it. The comment had to be edited out of the show, and there were a handful of people demanding that Wendy apologize to Britney's family for what she said. Wendy ended up getting a lot of bad press for weeks following the incident, and as we all know by now, for a celebrity, bad press is a very dangerous thing to have. At number 3, Sia. Grammy-winning artist Sia started facing pretty serious backlash following the release of her feature film Music, starring Maddie Ziegler. The film, which is about a young non-verbal girl on the autism spectrum, starred Maddie Ziegler as the film's protagonist, and even though Maddie has worked closely with Sia for many years, fans had to put their foot down and call the singer out on her casting choice. Because the role went to someone who wasn't on the autism spectrum, she started facing backlash. The singer got a chance to clear the air while doing a sit-down interview recently, but instead of owning up to everything and apologizing to fans, she instead doubled down, which really made things worse for her. While she understood the feelings of those who were angry with her, Sia defended her casting choice by saying, quote, "There's no way I could have used someone of Maddie's level of functioning to play her. I can't do a project without her," end quote. This interview, combined with her harsh defense of the film on Twitter, made for a storm of backlash, and things got so bad that she had to leave social media to avoid the scrutiny. While her career isn't necessarily over, she has lost a lot of popularity. At number 2, Mark Wahlberg. In 2013, while appearing as a guest on the Graham Norton Show, Mark Wahlberg caused quite a scene that greatly affected his public image. Essentially, Mark went through his entire guest appearance while severely under the influence, and he made quite a fool of himself. While on the show, Mark kept interrupting other guests, touching people, acting pretty disruptive, and even fell asleep on the couch. It became one interview that Graham wanted to forget because of how awkward and uncomfortable the entire experience was. This moment went down in TV history as one of the worst interviews ever simply because of how chaotic it was. In the aftermath of the whole ordeal, Mark's public image declined for a while because he made a fool of himself on TV, and not every fan is into that kind of behavior. And finally, at number 1, Joe Rogan. The pandemic and the COVID vaccines are still a very hot topic amongst many people. There are opinions from opposite sides of the spectrum, and many times uninformed people spread misinformation that can really hurt others. This is how Joe Rogan started facing backlash after he made some comments about the vaccines that were incredibly untrue and pretty damaging. On his podcast, Joe was talking about the COVID vaccines, and he made a comment saying that young people didn't need to get vaccinated, saying, quote, "If you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I say no. If you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, I don't think you need to worry about this," end quote. His comments had to be fact-checked by one of the world's top doctors, where they went on to say that what Joe said was untrue and that no matter what your age or health status is, it's important to consider getting vaccinated if that's best for you. Because of what Joe said, he started facing backlash and people started calling him an anti-vaxxer. He had to set the record straight that he wasn't an anti-vaxxer, but people still don't believe him. In this day and age, your views on the pandemic and everything that comes with it can make or break you, so this backlash surely wasn't good for Joe. Now I want you guys to tell me about the worst job that you've ever had, and what made it so bad. I can't imagine a job being worse than being a celebrity because of how much drama they have to deal with on a daily basis, but there's probably a handful of other jobs out there that suck big time as well. So tell me about a job that you hated the most down in the comments.